believe we are broadcasting. All right, it looks like people are starting to roll in. So welcome to the webinar, everyone. We're gonna take a couple minutes, or sorry, we're gonna take a couple seconds and wait for everyone to actually get in the room before we go ahead and kick this off. But really quickly, just wanted to introduce myself and the guests we have here today. My name is Aditi. I am a campaign strategist from the Indiegogo side, and we have here with us Will and Sham. So Will, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Will Russell. I have a marketing agency, Russell Marketing, and we help folks launch their campaigns on Indiegogo. So I'm excited to be here today. Thank you for the invitation, Indiegogo, and looking forward to digging in.
Amazing. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. And a couple quick things for housekeeping. We are going to be recording this, so you guys will get a recording afterwards if you attended, so that way you can watch it at your leisure. And we will be hosting more webinars like this in the future. So if this is something that's interesting to you, if you're thinking of crowdfunding for a project that's coming up, we're more than happy to help out. So keep an eye out on the emails we send. So today what we're going to cover is, first we're going to start with an introduction, of course, and then the next point of action is going to be why you want to acquire a pre-launch audience in the first place. What exactly is a pre-launch audience? The third thing will be how to obtain multiple touch points. What exactly is a touch point? And afterwards, we're going to have a long section where we allow for questions, answers. If you have any questions, please feel free to shoot them over in the Q&A that you'll see at the very bottom. There should be a little button. And we're happy to answer any questions that you might have towards the end. We'll also leave a little bit of space in the middle, so just kind of break it up and answer any questions you guys have then. So why do we even want to acquire a pre-launch audience? What exactly is a pre-launch audience? For some general high-level recommendations from our team, the importance of having a pre-launch audience on day one really can't be understated. You don't want to start your campaign in a vacuum where no one has heard of this before, and this is the first time anyone is coming to the page. If you don't show up and have a couple people who are already poised and ready to purchase and support you in your campaign, it's going to be a lot harder to get that ball moving. We're going to use this number 30%, and you're actually going to hear Will talk about it more in depth later on, but I kind of just wanted you to fix that number 30% in your mind starting now. Another important thing with the pre-launch audience is actually building out your messaging and figuring out what it is that's actually resonating with your audience before you ever go live. So you can take the pre-launch period to actually test out what's working, what sorts of messaging people are responding to, maybe what features of your product, if you're actually launching a physical product, people are really interested in. So the pre-launch phase has like a lot of different purposes, and it's really important that you guys engage in that. What percent of campaigns succeed without a pre-launch list? Very, 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 very few. The number is so small that it's not really worth even addressing. Again, it's really hard to kind of have people come to a page that they've never heard anything about, and maybe you're 1% funded, 5% funded, and then the ability to trust in that campaign is really not there. They don't necessarily know that that's going to be money well spent, and that's something that you'll be able to deliver on. So it's really difficult to actually get people to convert if you haven't already brought a few people to the table. An analogy that we really like to use here is the example of the restaurant. So you're walking by, you see two restaurants. One looks pretty packed, one looks pretty empty. Which one feels like the restaurant that is valuable, the one that you should go to? More than likely, without any other information, you're going to pick the one that people are actually at, because that tells you that other people want to be there. So you want your campaign to be like a restaurant that is very busy, that's very full, that looks like, oh, I need to get in on something because clearly these people know something that I don't. So how do you actually collect this audience? Where would these people even go in the first place? You want to build out a pre-launch page for that, and that's just going to be a page where you have some basic information about your product, about what it is that you're going to be launching the campaign for, and you have a section to collect email addresses. Will is going to go in depth there as well, so more to come. And rewarding your early audience. The important thing with having an audience that comes to Indiegogo is these are people who have signed up, who have put their trust in you to give them something that they're not going to get anywhere else. And so you want to make sure that when they show up on day one, that you're able to really reward them for being there in the first place. Something that's really valuable here is one of the tools that we have, the secret perk tool. And this basically allows you to send out a link that gives people access to a perk that they can't otherwise see on the campaign page. So it's a really good way to reward people who have signed up beforehand with their email addresses. When they show up to your campaign page, they're able to get a deal that they wouldn't otherwise be able to get. So yeah, being able to kind of leave carrots for people is really important in the pre-launch stage. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Will here, and you're in good hands. So go ahead.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you very much. I'll preface anything we're going to talk about today and point to a couple of the campaigns that we're running on Indiegogo right now, so you can take a peek at some of those campaigns and potentially map some of what we're talking about today to what you see on those campaigns, the funding you see, some of the success you see. So if you want to take a peek on the Indiegogo website, you can take a look at campaigns such as Prua Koala V2, that's live with us right now. There's one called Time Cheat. We went live yesterday with a campaign called Comet, which you'll see a little bit in today's presentation. We're also live with a campaign called Aria. So go ahead if you want to take a peek at how these kinds of strategies turn and succeed and play out into an actual campaign. Those are some nice examples for you to look at while we're going through this today. For me, there's really two key reasons while we're building up our pre-launch audience. The first, as Aditi's touched on, is we need a strong community. If you're going to be launching a campaign, you need to bring a strong community to that campaign for early success. It's that strong launch, it's that early success that's going to deliver you and accelerate the traction you're going to see during the rest of the project. I think the most common mistake we see from folks that come in and sign up on our website requesting information, requesting a phone call, one of the most common mistakes we'll see is that people have launched, they've seen a poor launch, they've realized, you know, darn, maybe this pre-launch stuff was more important than I thought, and they've realized that either they need to take drastic action or they need to scratch everything they've done and start again. So recruiting these VIPs is about building up this pre-launch audience so that you can bring traction to the campaign the day you launch. And just at the bottom of this slide, there's a nice resource I want to point to, medium.com. Jake Disraeli, who's our team member now, used to be an Indiegogo team member, in fact. And he's compiled a neat article with a crowdfunding calculator where you can plug in some of your own numbers, plug in some budgets and goals and number of friends and family who might participate. And now you put that in, and the little document will spit out some interesting information for you and some guidance really on what sort of goals you might look to achieve and how you go about doing that. And this is the consequence of that strong pre-launch. So this is the first 4 days of a campaign we launched recently. And number one, big day one, is key. It's really critical to putting the campaign on the trajectory. You might look at days 2, days 3, and days 4 here and think, well, look at that drop off. And it is a drop off, but those days, they're still $10, $20, $30,000 days. And really the emphasis I'd like to put here is that day one is like a rock, dropping a rock into a lake. The ripples of the original rock, obviously they're going to be very forceful. The immediate impact, like day one of the campaign, is very forceful. But it's the ripples that then come from that dropping a rock in a lake that will give you the longevity. Those ripples aren't quite as powerful. They don't have quite as much force or impact, but they're what cause longevity. They will give a campaign duration and a real useful lifespan. The second reason we always push clients to prioritize their pre-launch audience is to drive engagement and excitement among those folks. When you're launching a crowdfunding campaign or any sort of product launch, you want to deliver excitement. In crowdfunding in particular, you want to deliver ownership. You want to make them feel like they're participating in something beyond just a sale. If they wanted to buy a product, they can do that on Amazon. Crowdfunding is much about e-commerce. It is about supporting other entrepreneurs, supporting each other, and being part of a community. When you can allow your prospective customers to be part of your journey, give them behind the scenes insights, and make them feel like they're helping decide the course of the campaign and the launch, then they buy into your success, they buy into your campaign, and if they're feeling ownership over your project, then that's a big win for you, because they're going to want to see success almost as much as you're going to want to see success. And when they're signing up and they're expressing their interest in your project, that's kind of step one. And step two is resolving any objections they might have, resolving any questions they might have. And this engagement period in between them signing up and you positioning the offer to them, launching your campaign, is all about giving them that context, giving them that engagement, answering those questions. And as Aditi alluded to earlier on, no one wants to eat at an empty restaurant. So this community, you need to push their urgency, you need to give them excitement, offer them those secret perks, and make sure that when that campaign goes live, they're going to be supporting it. And then all the other folks that are going to come and find your campaign page, they're going to see a campaign that's rocking and rolling and doing very well. Lots of social proof and credibility, lots of action and engagement happening on the campaign page. And so here's just a little example of what sort of engagement you might offer. When you're considering these pre-launch leads, this pre-launch community, consider there's the engagement element in that you want to make them feel excited about the product, but there's also the learning element. Oftentimes, a product, when it's going to be crowdfunded, or a product idea when a campaign is going live on crowdfunding, there's still some room for negotiation, I suppose, in the exact specifications of the product itself, or the exact offer that you're going to launch with on the campaign. Perhaps you've got a definitive specification for the product itself, but how about some additional accessories that will be a relatively light lift for you and are very much wanted by the prospective community? If the community are telling you, hey, this offer would mean a whole lot more to us with a couple of additions or a couple of tweaks, that's fantastic information for you to learn before you go live with it, and before you put in all that work to building up your campaign page, putting together your video, and so on. Now, this might look familiar to a few of you. This is a Indiegogo pre-launch page, and this is going to be email lead collection is the number one recommendation you'll see as to how to build a pre-launch audience. Articles online, resources, webinars like this one, they all talk about email marketing, and that's because it's renowned for its ability to generate strong return. It allows you to personalize your content. An email can be lengthy, it can be a long piece of content, and it can explain a lot through copy, through visual. So it allows a campaigner, an entrepreneur, a business owner to deliver quite a lot of content en masse to a large number of people at one time. And that's why email marketing was a powerful marketing channel 10 years ago. That's why it's still a powerful marketing channel today. And that's why I suspect in 10 years, it will continue to be a strong marketing channel. It also allows you this one-on-one sense of communication. Of course, if you're using an email marketing platform like MailChimp, then you might be sending to 500, 1,000, 10,000 people in one go. However, it's coming from you, or it can come from you, and that feels personal. You can create templates of emails that feel personal. So all in all, it feels like a much more of a one-on-one communication channel than something like Facebook or something like Twitter. And the data proves that, as you can see here. Email marketing, one-on-one communication channels can convert 4 to 5 times better than things like Facebook or Twitter. And so what we have here is kind of a pretty common pre-launch generation method. So if you imagine the pre-launch landing page we just looked at momentarily ago, here we go. We're going to want to drive people to this page. And a common and popular way of doing that is through social media or social media advertising. So in this example of a funnel, we have the ads or the social media channel that's driving traffic to the landing page. At the landing page, someone's going to type in their information, their email address, and they're going to end up on a thank you page. Thank you for signing up. And then obviously, as you'll see, if you've ever signed up for these things, you're going to have a welcome email come to you, introducing the brand, introducing the product. And in this funnel, it's a popular funnel, it's a great funnel. You have one fundamental touch point with the prospective customer, don't you? You have this email. Someone's come, they've signed up, they've given you their email address, and that's the touch point that you have with them. If you're advertising, you might argue, well, we have a touch point with them because we could retarget people who visit a page, which is true. But really, you're looking at one core communication method through a funnel like this. And this communication method is here to do this one thing, this 30% rule, which Aditi alluded to earlier. The rule that campaigns that reach 30% of their funding goal in the first couple of days have a much higher chance of success. It's the acquisition and the engagement of these pre-launch leads that are going to give you this snowball effect, this 30% rule. Again, this is a good rule to consider if you were to look at the crowdfunding calculator, the Medium article that I referred to earlier. If you Google crowdfunding calculator, how to reach your funding goal, or medium.com, Jake Disraeli, you find a nice article, a nice piece of content that allows you to assess what is this 30%? What kind of budget might I need to hit this 30%? If I don't hit this 30%, what might the consequence of that be for the rest of my campaign? Usually within 48 hours of a launch, perhaps even within 24 hours of a launch, we have a pretty good feeling for what the trajectory of this campaign will be, and we have a pretty good feeling for whether it's even worth continuing. So as I said before, we get a lot of folks reaching out to us. They've launched, it hasn't gone as well as they wanted it to, they feel like they're in a bit of trouble, maybe they're a couple of percent funded after their first 48 or 72 hours, and frankly, it's time to shut up shop and give it another go. I wouldn't try and continue pursuing that. Really, you're focused on knocking out this 30%, and if you haven't got to this 30% benchmark, it's going to be a heck of an uphill battle, which is why the pre-launch preparation is just so important. You don't want to face that uphill battle once the campaign begins. And here we see that snowball effect across the duration of a 60-day campaign. This is a campaign that we launched last year, towards the end of last year, I believe, and maybe early this year, and you'll see they had a super strong first couple of days. That first couple of days, that gives us the social proof that people are not eating in an empty restaurant. If they show up to this campaign on day 3 and they see $120,000 already raised, 1,000 backers already participating, there's credibility to that. There's proof that this is a concept, and this is an exciting concept that many people want to be a part of. Again, there's a steep drop-off after the first couple of days, which doesn't make you feel good as a campaigner, certainly, but it's natural, it's okay. And what we should really consider when you're looking at a diagram like this is that those early dollars hold more value than the dollars you'll get later in the campaign. And I think that's something to take away with you. If there are a handful of things to take away with you today, that is one of them. The early dollars are more valuable than the later dollars in a campaign, because without the early dollars, without this mountain early on in this campaign that we're looking at, those later dollars don't come. So it's critical that you get that early traction, you get that 30%, you have that snowball effect, and you put your campaign on a positive trajectory. Now, we talk a lot about email, and I just want to note, I will pause for questions in a few slides. We'll take a pause, we'll bring in some questions, because there's a lot of content coming in here. But give me a few more moments, a few more slides before we take that pause. Now, you might see plenty of articles or marketers suggesting that email will die. We've been hearing that for a long time. Email marketing, in my opinion, is not going anywhere. However, our inboxes are noisy, and you know this, I know this. You go onto your inbox in the morning sometimes and you have a lot of emails coming in from a lot of different people. For those of us here in the US, we're entering the politics season with the election coming up, and so there's more and more kind of email marketing going on than ever, more and more marketing going on than ever. And this makes things very busy. It makes it hard to stand out in an inbox. And so for you as a campaigner, you're sending the emails and you're competing against so many other marketing managers or entrepreneurs or businesses or personal contacts that are competing for that same space. And that means that the sad reality is, for most campaigners, between a quarter to a half of your prospective customers, those that sign up by email, are never gonna open any of your emails. And I could put it to you: does anyone know why? Are there any ideas you can think of as to why almost half, in some cases, of those that sign up for your crowdfunding campaign or your launch aren't going to open your email? And also, there's a way around this. I think a lot of people don't realize, if people aren't opening your emails, what can you do about it? You know, if you're not getting into an inbox, then you're not getting into an inbox. But there are lots of ways around that, and those are a few of the things we're going to talk about today. One of the main reasons people will not open your email is they've lost interest. Perhaps you didn't have a welcome email. Perhaps they signed up and they didn't receive an email from you for another 6 weeks. That's too long. They're going to have lost interest by then, and by that time, they're going to have forgotten who you are. The second likely scenario is window shopping. For those of you who have e-commerce experience, selling products online, you'll know that the number of people that add to cart but then do not complete their checkout is very, very high. It can be up to 75 or 80%. Because people like to window shop. People like to put stuff in their cart. They like to sign up for things kind of as a bookmark, or they're just flagging their interest in something and thinking, oh, I'll come back to this later perhaps, and then they just don't. So the sad reality is a lot of people are just signing up because yes, they're interested, but maybe there isn't real purchase intent behind their interest. This is a big one, and there's only so much you can do to control this, but when you're bringing in people into an email list at high volume, the number of people that type in their email address wrong is pretty significant. Gmail.com is a favorite, hotmail.com, those kind of things, Gmail without the L on the end. There's many different scenarios, and it's a small percentage, but you'll be surprised at quite how many that is. And of course, if someone puts their email address in wrong, then you're never going to get into their inbox, and they're never going to read an email from you. And then we also might consider some sort of technical errors. Perhaps if you're using a platform such as MailChimp, what MailChimp does is they have their own servers, basically, and they will group email marketers together. And they will send your emails to your audience, plus Joe's Plumbing, plus a couple of other companies, and they'll put all your emails into one place, and they'll send them all out from the same server. And what that means, if you're put on the same server as someone who's sending spam, that's going to affect you, and there's very little you can do about that if you're using a platform like MailChimp. So technical errors like that are also a problem. And finally, perhaps they just don't use email very often. Perhaps by the time they have looked at their inbox, got into their inbox, your email number 467 or 468, and you're far too far of a scroll down for them to dig in and open your email and give it a read. So the reality is there are quite a few reasons here, but a significant portion of email leads will simply never read an email of yours. And so what we're going to talk about in our next section after a couple of questions is how do we look past that? How can we obtain different touch points to ensure that 100% of people interested in your campaign will see your communications? So Aditi, I'm going to pause there and stop to see if there are any questions coming in that we can answer on all the content that's just been discussed.
That sounds good. I know that we've already had a couple questions come in through the Q&A, and a couple of them look like they might just be technical ones. Terry, you asked, you had your son sign up, but you're not seeing his details. In that case, I would reach out to our support team, and they'd be able to help you with that if that's like a technical error. There was another question about the pre-launch page from Derek, who asked, is the pre-launch page on Indiegogo or do I create it separately with a link to the campaign? Will, I'll hand that over to you.
Yeah, great question. The pre-launch page that we looked at on this slide deck, that was directly on Indiegogo. If you were to set up a page, a pre-launch page on Indiegogo like that, then there's a couple of positives of that. The first is that they may get you some promotion before you launch. And if they can promote your pre-launch page, then those are very, very high quality prospective customers. And secondly, that URL, the URL of your pre-launch page on Indiegogo will redirect into your live campaign URL. So it's very simple for your prospective customers. They can use the same link to access basically the pre-launch page and the live campaign. If you wanted to do some more advanced marketing, do some more complex funnels, perhaps you want to do a lot of testing on the images or the headlines, then you would look to do it through a different platform, a landing page platform, which allows you comprehensive functionality to do tests. But for many people, the Indiegogo pre-launch page is a great option.
Great. Do we have time for one more question, you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So we've got one more. Okay, how much of the overall marketing budget do you allocate towards phase 1 or pre-launch?
That's an excellent question. And the biggest factor in that, for me, will be the cost of your product. So when you're doing pre-launch work, the reality is that you're not giving the user the option to buy right away, are you? You're bringing them in to your email list, talking to them for a while, and then you're presenting them with this offer. The longer it takes to go from interest to offer, the more people you lose. That's just a consequence of marketing. So if you have a low price product, let's say you're selling something on Indiegogo for $20, $30, you can't really afford to have too much time for people to drop off. So if you're launching a lower cost product, I would allocate perhaps 20 to 30% of your overall budget, of your overall marketing budget to that pre-launch phase. If you're launching an expensive product, let's say you're launching an e-bike, $2,000 product, then you need that time. You need more time to engage people, to sell them on a $2,000 product. So if you're launching with a very expensive product, I would suggest using perhaps 50, 60, even 60% of your total marketing budget during this pre-launch phase.
Amazing. Very, very helpful. Thank you, Will.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, we've got a bunch of other questions, but I think keep them coming. We'll go ahead and answer those towards the end, I think. But yeah, I will bring it back to you.
Let's go. So, not everyone likes email, for one, as we just pointed towards. Even people that do like email, they simply may not read your emails. So what we're doing when we're launching is we're trying to create multiple touch points. How can we communicate? Let's say I'm running an email campaign and Joe Simpson is a prospective customer. He signs up to my email list. Really, I want to create as many different channels of communication with Joe Simpson as possible. Just in case, if my email doesn't work for some reason or he doesn't read it, how else can I communicate with him? Because the bottom line is, he's registered his interest. He's expressed interest in this product. And unfortunately, because of the noise in marketing and because of the competition, he may still be very interested, but simply hasn't seen that this offer is now available. So what we want to do is create as many touch points as possible with each of these prospective customers, so that if email doesn't work, you've got a backup plan. If plan B doesn't work, you've got a plan C. So you don't have all your eggs in one basket, one email marketing basket. And so this isn't a more advanced funnel. Earlier on this webinar, we took a look at a simple email funnel. This is a slightly more advanced one. So in this funnel, you'll see traffic from ads perhaps on the left-hand side pushes users to a landing page. Perhaps it's a pre-launch Indiegogo landing page. Now, in this funnel, when someone signs up, yes, you can send them a welcome email. However, yes, you could also invite them to a VIP group, for example. Perhaps you want to invite them to a Facebook group. And then additionally, as part of this sign-up flow, perhaps you want to invite them to get notified by a chatbot, and that's a Facebook Messenger, essentially, or perhaps you want to do SMS, a text message. So by adding a couple of additional things to a sign-up funnel for a user, it doesn't add much time, and we'll take a look at this in a sec, but by adding a couple more things with this funnel, just by adding that VIP group and adding that chatbot sign-up, we've now got 3 key touch points with each user, or whichever users choose to sign up for those 3 touch points. Which means that, let's say a terrible worst case scenario, which has happened, if our email address or emails end up going to spam folder, then we can still use this VIP group, we can still use this chatbot sign up to communicate with these prospective customers and let them know, hey guys, this is live, this product's ready. You can now go ahead and get your launch discount. And something I want to emphasize in this flow, if you're looking for additional touch points, which is critical, your job is to make it easy for them. Here's a very simple example. This is a welcome email for a client we recently launched. They signed up and they received their welcome email. And in that welcome email, we asked them a very simple question. Do you want to get notified by email when we launch, or do you want to get notified by Facebook Messenger? It's very easy for them. All they do is click. From the behind the scenes standpoint, there are a few things that certainly go into that, making sure we have these platforms ready to bring in this data, make sure we're prepared to then use that information. If someone signs up on Messenger, we're able to then deliver content to those people. But from the user standpoint, it's super, super easy. They sign up, get an email, one click, boom. We suddenly got 2 touch points with them. So from your standpoint, when you go through your own flow, when you're building out your campaign, you're building out your pre-launch, pretend you're the user, go through that flow and see how easy or how difficult it is. And we want to cater to them. So for some people, SMS might be a great option. Let's say if we're launching a campaign for an older generation, then we might look at tools like email, we might look to tools like Facebook Messenger, for example. That the older demographic often use Facebook Messenger because they're more skeptical of SMS. The younger generation, no problem, SMS all the way. So consider what your customers or potential customers would find most valuable and use those touch points. Here's some examples. SMS, you could do a meetup group, you could do a messenger, you could do WhatsApp, chatbot communities, Facebook VIP groups, all sorts of different ways, all sorts of different platforms whereby you can create an additional touch point. And remember to continue that one-on-one communication with the prospective customer. We want to consider these touch points are about personal connection, not about spamming as much as possible. It's about building that one-on-one relationship where you can give the impression that you as the campaigner are speaking directly to this prospective customer. More touch points you can get, the better. That's the reality, because I'm pretty risk averse myself, and so I want to minimize the risk for us, and I want to minimize the risk for all of our clients. And that means creating as many touch points as possible. If we had an example like this, where we have an email list, a Facebook group, and an SMS, let's say apocalyptic scenario where Gmail stops working for everyone on our launch day, Google has massive problems and we can't access Gmail inboxes for people, potentially Facebook has the same blackout and we can't get into Facebook groups, then we can still rely on SMS. So in apocalyptic scenarios, the more touch points you can get, the better. But we recommend 3 to 5 because when you're doing more than 5, we feel and we've seen in our experience, you're going to start frustrating the user. You know, they're going to start thinking, well, why do you keep asking me for all these different touch points? 3, 4, 5, you can get away with. You can integrate them in seamlessly. But when you start trying to ask for many, many more, you can start becoming a little bit annoying, and it might have the opposite effect than what you want. And Aditi, this is a slide which I wanted to bring you on and just talk about how Indiegogo uses multiple touch points for some of their communities.
Yeah, so we also, like every other company out there, have lots of touch points. It's not quite so futuristic looking as this image. Whenever we do them, it's just as simple as everything as well as been talking about. One of the main ways that we talk to our audience and get in touch with them is through newsletters. And I think that's how a lot of you guys probably found out about this webinar. Social media is another part of our strategy to reach wider and wider audiences. You might be able to stumble across us in seeing a campaign highlighted through someone's story, or someone tags us in something, or the social media that we're doing actively on our end. The third one, obviously, webinars. This is a great way to talk to people who need a little bit more handholding and who want actual information from us rather than a little bit of marketing. Blog posts, we have a really, really active blog that our marketing team puts articles out on, and this is another great way to, kind of come at it from a thought leadership position. We also do live meetups for those people who really aren't that digitally engaged and want to be able to engage with us in person. We have super backer meetups sometimes. And on a more granular level, sometimes we work directly with users through user research to actually see how some of this is coming across and how our messaging is working.
Thank you. And to touch on the user research one, I've been involved in some of that. Indiegogo has come to us before and asked for our specific help on some focus groups or whatnot. And it's really granular, and that kind of personal one-on-one touch point is incredibly valuable for the brand. It's not possible to do for thousands of people, and when you're crowdfunding, you want to build massive communities, and you can't quite provide that touch point with everyone. But a lot of our clients, certainly for their earliest supporters or their most high priority supporters, will give them the chance to be in a private WhatsApp group with just the founder and a few others, or take some one-on-one phone calls with the founder. That personalization is really, really valuable. Now, as we come to this conclusion, we have a few more minutes and we'll come back to questions. I know that there are quite a few flooding in. I wanted to put the conversation we've had around touch points in context. So we've talked about email marketing being incredibly valuable as a way to build your pre-launch audience. We've talked about engaging those prospective customers before you launch and to get them excited, to drive urgency. But we've also flagged that email marketing is busy and noisy these days, and there's a lot of competition. So what we want to do is create as many touch points as possible with our prospective customers. And here's a nice example of how we can do that. So this is a pre-launch landing page, similar to the Indiegogo one we saw before. This is off of Indiegogo. And on this pre-launch landing page, in addition to asking for the first name and email address, we have an optional field for the phone number. About 30% of people who fill out this form will add their phone number. So a lot of people don't, but 30% if you're building a list of 10,000 people, that's 3,000 phone numbers you're going to get hold of to communicate with people. So it's a really nice touch point. It's optional. It doesn't affect the conversion rate of the page in our experience. And immediately, with 30% of our leads, we built 2 touch points right from the start. In this particular flow, when someone completes that sign-up form, whether they add their phone number or not, they will end up on this page. They'll be invited to join us in a private Facebook group. We give them a little incentive to join, and they'll get access to special offers. They'll get one-on-one time with the founders. They'll get to shape. We talked about giving the the community ownership. They'll get to shape particular features of the product. And so you give people the option to join a Facebook group. Now, about 50% in our experience of leads will join this Facebook group. So in 2 pages, you've got your landing page and you've got your sign up page. Sorry, you've got your landing page and your thank you page. In just those 2 pages, we've now created 3 touch points with users. If we're building a list of 1,000 people, we've got 1,000 people in an email list, we've got 500 people in a Facebook group, and we've got 300 people for whom we have their phone numbers. So wonderful and very useful touch points for our campaign launch. Here, this is the welcome email for that product. So someone signs up, they're going to get a welcome email, and we give them the option to be notified by Messenger. So that's touch point number 4. So at this stage, again, we're maybe, this is a span of 15 seconds for the user, and we've already collected 4 different potential touch points with those folks. And then finally, this is the last step, and again, this is kind of pushing the limit. You don't want to make people do too many things, but we found that 4 steps like this and 5 touch points is a nice stopping point. Any more than that, and you do risk annoying people. But this one, so in this previous slide, if they click notify me by email, they will end up here. So in addition to us saying, great, confirmed, we'll email you, we give them the option to take a survey, completely up to them. We don't push them hard to it, but we give them the chance to feel part of the launch, part of the product, and we get a touch point with them through the survey where we get them to sign up to a separate channel as well. So within this 15-20 second period, we've just accumulated up to 5 touch points with each user in a pretty seamless and unobtrusive way. And that's really the value and the easiness at which you can implement something like this, just to get you more than just that email lead, but to get that Facebook lead, the Facebook group lead, the Facebook Messenger lead, the SMS lead, and as many lead touch points as possible. And finally, just as we're about to come to a conclusion, I want to give you some real life data. This is something, a lot of what we talk about today, you can find online. You know, a lot of the content that you're going to explore as a new or early campaigner is going to be very repetitive. You're going to see a lot of content around pre-launch work and building email lists and creating engaging content. But this is the kind of stuff you're not going to see online. I don't think this kind of information is available anywhere. So write this down if you're still here, and pay attention to this particular slide, because this really shows a difference in data that you're not going to see in any other resource. And this is a look at 3 different campaigns that we recently launched with my company at Russell Marketing. Campaign A, Campaign B, Campaign C. This is an analysis after the first 48 hours of the campaign. And if you remember back earlier on, we talked about that 30% rule after 48 hours. That's a key period. So after 48 hours, of course, we'll do an analysis and see, well, how are things looking? Take a temperature. Where do we see this campaign going? In campaign A, we had 3 touch points: an email list, a Facebook group, and we had SMS. The conversion rates there, 6.23% converted through email in that first 48 hours. So that's 6.23% of the email list. Facebook group, 28% of the people who joined that Facebook group converted. And then SMS, 7% almost of people who gave us their phone number converted through SMS at launch. So to emphasize, usually we'll see about 50%, perhaps 2/3 of the leads that are going to convert will convert during that first period. So if about 50% of the leads that will convert into customers do so in the first 2 days, then you can imagine that these overall percentages at the conclusion of a campaign will probably be about double. So if 6% in campaign A convert from an email list in the first 48 hours, probably about 12% would have done so by the conclusion of the campaign. But look at that difference there, email list to Facebook group. That's really sizable difference. Campaign B, we look at an email list conversion rate of 2.06%. We have an SMS conversion rate of, again, close to 7% there. 3, almost 4 times more powerful than that email list. Campaign C, email list at 5%, Facebook group at almost 8.5%, 9%, and chatbot, this is a Facebook Messenger, that list converted at 9, coming up on 10% in that first 48 hours. So what this is here to show is the value of having that additional touch point. And it's not that this should replace email. All that content that you see out there telling you to build an email list, including what we talked about today, it's true, it's genuine, and absolutely, I would highly recommend an email list be top of your list. However, what this emphasizes is that email marketing isn't everyone's cup of tea. There are lots of other ways to reach people, and many of those people prefer to be reached in a different way. And simply by focusing only on email, you will be missing out on potential conversions. So again, take a look at this and just see what a difference in conversion rate you can get by adding a couple of additional touch points to your pre-launch strategy. And with that, we will just take one quick slide of summary and a few things that you want to take away with you in particular today. Remember that 30% rule. You want to acquire 30% of your funding, ideally within the first 48 hours. And as part of that, remember that those early dollars hold more weight. They're more valuable to you than your later dollars. Remember that one-on-one communication channels are the way to go. You want to be able to be personal. You want to be able to give the impression of one-on-one communication with your potential customers. Remember that a quarter to a half of your email marketing leads will never open your emails, and therefore it's critical, and you're really missing out if you don't go ahead and try and create some extra touch points with those users and cater to the customer. Make it easy for them. Don't make your customer or potential customer jump through hoops to create these touch points with them. Try and make their life as easy as possible. And with that, we will move on to Q&A, and there's quite a few coming in. So let's jump into that, Aditi.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much for your expertise, Will. I'm sure this was really helpful. It looks like we've got a lot of questions, a lot coming in. And I think some of them can be summarized by one question, which is like budget. How should you think about budget? What do you do if you don't have a massive budget? And what is the breakdown for pre-launch versus launch budget?
Absolutely. I would say that a good rule of thumb, if you do have budget, a good rule of thumb to start with is 50-50 split. It's not going to end up being like that pre-launch, post-launch exactly, and you'll change and iterate on your budgets as you go. But if you're in the planning stage, a good ballpark number is think, okay, 50% of my marketing budget could be spent pre-launch, 50% could be spent during the campaign itself. If you don't have access to much budget, then it really is just a case of rolling the sleeves up and doing it a much harder way. What budget facilitates is just growth at a quick pace. With budget, you can run ads and you can reach thousands of people within a few hours. If you don't have that budget, you just have to reach those thousands of people yourself. And so examples of that are trade shows, events, going to local accelerators, perhaps going to local startup events, getting yourself out there. Also, people that don't have much budget are really going to lean more heavily on family, friends, their LinkedIn networks, their own community to give them that early traction. And then also consider a couple of marketing tactics you can use to incentivize growth from others. So referral campaigns, affiliate campaigns, those are both tactics that will incentivize other people to share on your behalf and don't cost you anything at the get-go. If you have an affiliate campaign, for example, you might incentivize people that for every customer they refer to, they get 10% kickback. So you're still going to pay for that. You're not going to pay for that until revenue has come in. So there are also a few different marketing tactics like that where you can kind of delay the costs to you.
That's great. You actually got ahead of it and you answered the next question, which is, what do you think about affiliate programs? Yeah.
I think if they work for you, they're great. They don't work for everyone. I would say they don't work for many. I think the product has to be something incredibly unique and exciting. and the incentive to the user has to be substantial. If you have a $20 product and you're offering 10% kickback, the $2 kickback probably isn't going to do it for someone. So when it works, it can really work very well indeed. Indiegogo have a great functionality for referrals. Essentially, it's not quite an affiliate platform, but they have a referral link functionality where you can run referral type campaigns with your backers. So I'd say I recommend it to every campaigner. It may not work all that well, but it's certainly something I would recommend giving a go. And when it does work, it can work very nicely.
Yeah, exactly. It's a pretty low lift solution. And as far as the referral tool that Will just mentioned on the platform, if you just search referrals Indiegogo, it shows up in our help center, and it's a really low lift way of doing this through the platform itself after you actually launch the campaign. Great. The next question is a really good one. What is the ideal pre-launch time period before launching the main campaign?
That is a good one. It depends on size, number one. The bigger the campaign you want, $1 million campaign generally is going to have a longer pre-launch than a $50,000 campaign or a $10,000 campaign. However, the thing about crowdfunding is we just try and look at benchmarks and averages, and I would say a good average is going to be about 6 to 8 weeks. That would be a good time frame to start your marketing, start building your relationship, 6 to 8 weeks in advance of your launch.
Yeah, if you wait too long to launch, you'll end up oftentimes with stale leads who are maybe they've forgotten about you, maybe they're no longer interested in this, or they've gone ahead and purchased something that sort of filled that gap for them. So yeah. So a lot of what we've been talking about, I think, has to do with products in the sense of like, tech and hardware, which we see a lot of on Indiegogo. But we have a question now about someone who's looking to maximize success for a nonprofit fundraiser on the platform. Do you have any thoughts there, Will?
I do. I mean, it's a tricky one. It's not easy, that's for sure. I think with nonprofits, we need to think a lot more about messaging. If you have a snazzy tech product, you can get away with pretty basic messaging because the product itself allures people. When you're raising funds for a nonprofit, you may not have these uh, exceptional perks. Really, what you're selling is the story behind the nonprofit, the help that this person's contribution is going to contribute towards. So I think messaging is particularly key with nonprofits. And then secondly, I think with nonprofits, there's more benefit to kind of larger purchase amounts. So if I'm running a nonprofit campaign, I'm going to be more focused on seeing if I can acquire some big donor amounts. Maybe you can have a few perks at $1,000 level, and you can find people that can contribute that level, almost like a B2B kind of distributor type perk, but a high volume, because the single backer perks, it is going to be harder to sell those than it would be on a tech campaign. But if you can get a few people to buy a big perk at a high value, then you're still going to be able to get that volume of revenue on the campaign, the volume of funding. It's going to help you with that early traction and help you with the longevity of your project. So looking for those big donors is something I always prioritize with nonprofit campaigns.
That's actually a really good lead in into another question that we have about the conversion percentage and whether or not it varies depending on the perks price range.
The perks price range. The rule of thumb that Indiegogo, among many other resources, will point to is about a 5% conversion rate of your leads. And then on the campaign page, you maybe see a 3% conversion rate of traffic that comes to the campaign page. Arguably, yes. As the price point of a product or perk changes, the conversion rate will change, but it's not linear. An e-bike campaign will definitely have a lower conversion rate than the earbud campaign, but it's not substantial. I think that the price of the product isn't the critical variable that's affecting conversion rates. So even small campaigns, big campaigns, low price point campaigns, high price point campaigns, they can still use the same methodology and the same planning estimates to build out their strategy.
Actually, an offshoot of that is, what are your thoughts on including the price point on the pre-launch page? So for if you have like a $99 perk, or if you're planning on selling an e-bike, let's say, and it's going to be closer to $2,000, how often do you include the price?
We never include the price on the pre-launch page, almost never. Maybe as a test. Clients often want that. Clients feel that it's dishonest not to, and I see that point of view. My personal opinion is that price point will become a number one objection to your customer. Whatever company you are, price point will be a big objection. And if you show people price point up front, you're giving them an opportunity to dismiss you without giving you a chance. If you bring them in without showing them the price point, let them get to know you, engage them, talk to them, and then you can present the price point to them. That goodwill is going to really help your conversion rate, and it's going to make people who might not have signed up in the first place, had they seen the price the first day they saw it, they looked at the page, it might turn some of those people from people who would have turned around and disappeared to people who become some of your biggest supporters. So my personal opinion, we don't introduce price point of the product until the user is signed up and in our funnel during the pre-launch phase.
Okay, that's really helpful. We have actually kind of a longer question from Leandro over here. And Will, I'm not sure if you can see the Q&A, but I'm going to go ahead and read this out for everyone. And Leandro asked, regarding marketing expense, research shows that your marketing budget should be roughly 10 to 30% of the total amount you're looking to raise, i.e. 100 for 1 million. The reality is, as we are starting a business, our margins are razor thin, considering all upfront production and overhead costs. In this case, how can an organization justify spending so much in marketing? One option, of course, is that a crowdfunding campaign is not for profit generation. Instead, it's for marketing for future business activities. While this might be a solid strategy for some startups, it can vary others. Are there more intelligent ways of marketing, or perhaps case studies that you can speak of which break the standard 10 to 30% marketing budget?
Wow, Leandro, that's a really good and astute question, an advanced question for many folks. I guess the short answer to that is going to be no, in the fact that those averages are there for a reason. 10 to 30%, that exists as an average for a reason, because that's the reality. There are anomalies. I would say your best chance of being one of those anomalies is to collect as much purchase intent data before you invest in your marketing efforts. So even before what we've talked about today, before building a list, doing any of that, run tests. And this is a whole different conversation. But if you want to talk about this more, you can contact us. You'll find my email address or contact us on the website. But essentially, if you can validate a price point at a low budget before you launch, you will have the data and the confidence to invest more, even with razor thin margins. What you need with razor thin margins is minimal risk. And by running validation before you get involved in all this pre-launch, that's exactly what you can do. You can minimize risk. So the percentages might not change all that much. Potentially they will if you do the right validation, but it's more a case of minimizing your risk and working with the razor thin margins that you've got.
That was great. Thank you. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. And so just to kind of circle back to that price point, you mentioned you guys never really talk about how expensive or how not expensive the perk is going to be upon launching, but someone is asking because their leads are starting to get annoyed that they actually haven't announced a price. So how do you get around that usually, Will?
One easy way of getting around that is coming up with some sort of templated response of, we have not yet determined that. The whole point of crowdfunding is that this is very early stage. So you can give them a ballpark. If people are asking for it, you're absolutely right. You don't want to annoy people. So if people are asking for it, you can be perfectly upfront and just say, hey, this is what we're thinking. We're thinking an MSRP, a retail price of, let's say, $100. For our crowdfunding campaign, we're thinking of launching it at $50, so you will get 50% off. However, it could end up anywhere between $80 to $140. Just give them a ballpark range. That usually satisfies most people.
Okay, that was amazing. Thank you. We have actually one final question, which is, you have the budget. Where do you go from here? As there are many marketing companies who would like my budget. I did not plant this. Terry Flores asked it. Will is a great resource. His team does really, really great work. So you can always reach out to him afterwards. We will be sending up some follow-up information, including his website. So you guys, I'm sure, can get in touch with him there. But yeah, Will is a great place to start.
Can I answer that as well?
Oh yeah, please.
I think, to be honest, there's a couple of things you want to consider when you're looking for a marketing partner. Number one, what kind of partner are they going to be? When you're looking for marketing agency partners, some of the marketing agencies will take over entire control, which is fine. Some campaigners are asking for that. Other campaigners want to be part of this. They want to be part of the journey, and therefore they're looking for someone who can kind of be an extension of their team rather than take over management. So that's something to consider when you're talking to different marketing partners. Something else to consider when you're talking to different marketing partners is their campaign history, not the history of 3 years ago, but the last 24 months, what kind of campaigns they've been working on, because all marketing agencies are going to tout their data. We've got these big backer lists and we've got data, but what you care about is the relevance of that data and the recency of that data. So really looking at what have been their most recent campaigns, and then are those campaigns similar to your product? I think those two things, what kind of agency partner are you looking for, and how relevant are their recent campaigns, are two of the key things to think about when you're looking for a partner.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you, Will. Cool. So I think we've run a little bit over time. This was wonderful. Thank you so much, Will, for being here and partnering with us on this webinar. Like I said, we will be following up afterwards with a bunch of information and some resources for you guys. I did notice a couple questions that were a little on the technical side around how you actually create the pre-launch page. I would recommend reaching out to our support team and they can actually help walk you through that. And also we have a lot of help center articles that include screenshots and they're pretty helpful. So they should be able to actually walk you through doing that on our platform. Thank you again, Will, and thank you guys for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure. And if anyone has any questions, russellmarketing.co, head to our website and you can submit some questions through the form and I'll be the one to get back to you. So I welcome them.
All right. Bye, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.